I was not a good student. I was not.
You weren't a good student?
No. At school.
I picture you getting like straight A's.
No, I was not. No, I would. Anybody that happens to listen to this that knew me in high school. Well, actually, I was ADD before ADD was a thing, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, school was just a blur to me for so long. Like, I just didn't. I was smart enough that I could do tests and do all right.
Yeah.
You know, I never did homework.
Yep.
I never studied. I'm actually going to have a teacher on in a couple of days, one of Kaylin's teachers over the years.
Nice.
And one of Kaylin's most inspirational teachers. And I'm interested to see what she thinks about boys, because I feel like schools aren't made for boys.
They're not. I don't think they are.
Like, I didn't belong there.
Yeah.
Maybe if I knew about exercising in the morning, like put me through a big workout, then sit me in a classroom, maybe I could have focused a little bit better. But it wasn't until like my junior year, junior year, the school had a thing. If you had study hall, you could get, if you had an A or B average, you could leave the classroom. You have to stay in study hall.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, let's do it.
Yep. Yeah.
And then, that's all it took was a little carrot for me at that point.
I know.
But I was luckily good at math. That was the one thing that saved me.
Do you use math quite a bit in your job right now, or is it more plug
in? Yeah. Basic math. It's adding and subtracting for the most part. Yeah.
You're on Bluebeam?
Yes.
Yep.
Yep. Bluebeam and Tekla.
Yeah.
So I'm just. Yeah. So, school wasn't. I mean, were you similar? I see you nodding your head. Were you similar in school?
Oh man, I didn't try at all in school. It was. I don't think if I didn't have sports,
Well, that was the other thing, right? You had to have a certain grade point.
I would have found ways to skip school and not do anything. But I went to school. I would do homework. I was the kid doing homework when they were collecting it.
That was me.
I would read like the first couple words of the question and then look at the answers and be like, it's probably this answer. And it was enough to get by. I think I was a B average student, and I never studied, never did anything. I didn't care. Like, I just didn't. Yeah. I felt like so much of it was useless.
Right.
Even in college, I went to Husson, and I think there was like 5 classes.
What was your major?
Criminal law.
Okay.
And there was like 5 classes where I actually took something out of it. And the biggest one was professional communications. And that talked about, which is the one I use the most today, really, was public speaking, knowing your audience. So whether or not I'm talking to Shane or I'm talking to a job site, or president of another company or whatever. And then it talked about presentations, putting together presentations. Talked about eating with clients. Talked a little bit about sales, which sales, I've always thought my whole life sales were like this cheesy thing, this cheesy thing.
Totally get it, yeah.
But sales don't always have to be selling a product. Like, the product can be you, or the product can be your idea, or the product can be your plan. It doesn't have to be, selling insurance or selling a car. Once I finally got over that grasp, I finally was like able to like move up in career development wise, and it was majority of it was that Sharon Kobretz was her name, Professor Sharon Kobretz. Learn more in that class. I would go back to that class. She's not teaching anymore, but I would go back to that class just to tell her students focus on this one. And it was more of a life skills type. Like, she literally taught us, hey, if you go to eat in Europe, this is how you're supposed to eat. If you eat in the United States, this is how you're supposed to eat. If you're at a corporate dinner, this is how you should eat. And I was like, well, this is kind of cool. And it's worked out. I've gone to dinners where I've been the nobody, and I'm eating with a bunch of somebodies.
Right.
And I'm like, I know how to do this. I know how to eat here. I can at least look like I know what I'm doing.
Well, so I was in engineering at first at UMaine, like their lower level engineering. And I kind of decided I wanted to go to architecture, but I still had, my mother was a professor at Maine, dental hygiene, and I got half tuition, so I'm like, I'm going to keep going here while I have half tuition. Yeah. And I took a communication class.
Yep.
And that was literally, like you're saying, I had the same experience. It was small group communication, so it was a very different kind of class. Like group dynamics and how, it was just such a cool, it was interesting stuff.
Yeah.
And I ended up with a communications degree.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I actually did, so UMaine Augusta had an architecture program, so I was doing that program, but I had to fill out, I was living in Old Town.
Yep.
So I had to fill out my schedule beyond the architectural classes. So I kept taking communication classes.
Yep.
And they're like, I was about to graduate from UMaine Augusta, and they're like, you have 1 or 2 more credits away from having a degree in communications. I'm like, well, I'll get my bachelor's. Why not?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
That's cool.
But I had, it's funny you say that though, because communication was.
But just being able to communicate being able to communicate, being able to listen. There's a couple studies out there where it talks about like the highest IQ versus, the lowest IQ, and then, average or slightly above average IQ. But the people that like the high earners are, the average to above average, middle IQ, but they know how to communicate and listen and have people skills. Because your highest IQ, they may not be socially aware enough to actually like communicate what their product is or communicate what they can do, and they end up getting stuck in a dead end job.
Right.
Or they know too much and they can't function. They can't function in today's society. But it's always kind of interesting, like how those skills are kind of looked down upon.
Right. So did you go from Husson to military?
Yeah. So I went high school to 1 semester of Husson. I played fall baseball, partied a ton, and did really bad my first semester. Did really bad. I had to write a letter to stay in the school. Right. Because they were like, hey man, you suck. You got to tell us that you're going to try harder next semester. And I was like, I will. And my dad was in Iraq at the time, his final tour.
Oh, your dad. So your dad's in the military?
Was in the military, yeah. He's retired now. And so I just was like, okay, well, I'm going to take a leave of absence. I'm going to join the military. So I did 1 semester at Husson, joined the military, was security forces, so military police. Came home.
That's what Evan's doing in basic.
Oh, no kidding.
He just finished.
For active duty or for Bangor, the guard?
So he did 2 basics. So as a junior, he did basic, and then he did it again he just finished his senior year, so he just did that. Now he's going to Husson right now.
Good for him.
And so I don't know. I don't think he's active.
Yep.
But he does guard stuff.
Okay.
He will go back to being active when he's done college, I think.
Here or out of state?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows at that point?
Well, either way, good for him.
But he's in the military police.
Yep.
In the military.
Yep. Good for him. So is he done with college, or is he?
Well, he wants to be a game warden.
Oh.
Is his ultimate goal
No
at this
kidding.
point.
Good
He was
for him.
between being a police officer and game warden, but
that's like probably the toughest one to get into in the state of Maine.
which one?
Game warden.
They're desperate though, aren't they?
They are desperate.
Because they can't find people that can pass the PT test.
Is that what it is?
I think that's a big part of it. And you have to have a
very
clean record.
Yeah, the poly for the game warden and the state police is a tough one.
So in that part, he's drug use and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
they want you to be honest too, in those things. They don't want you to lie about. I've had friends that go through and they're like, "Would you give your mom a speeding ticket?" And they're like, "Oh yeah." And they're like, "You're an idiot. Why would you give your mom a speeding ticket? What kind of person are you?"
Right.
Like, they want you to be honest. Like, I would never give my mom a speeding ticket. You know what I mean?
That'd be a tough one.
I would not. I'd be like, "Mom, go home. I'm not raising up those ones."
I finally got power over you.
Yeah. Go home and make a crock pot lasagna or something, and I won't write you up.
Right. Yeah. So you were saying Husson, then?
Yeah, Husson, then military. Did security forces for almost 4 years, and then switched career fields to engineering and installation down in South Portland. So we run Cat 6 cable, run fiber optic cable, splice them, terminate them, install manhole trenches, build cell towers, climb cell towers, rig antennas up on them. So basically fixed communication installation. Run excavators, trenchers.
Climbing towers, what's that like?
Climbing towers is fun. It was a lot more fun before I had kids.
Right.
Because I was scared of nothing back then. But we would climb 300-400 foot towers, and then we'd spend all day up there. So they would actually rig lunch up in a gut bag. We'd sit there and they'd rig antenna and parts up, and we'd put the antenna on. And that was fun because you're up there with your friends in a crappy environment, but you're up there having fun with your friends. I would always climb, one of my best friends, Ben. We joined right around the same time, and he's scared of heights, but he's tough. and no one would know that he's afraid of heights if unless you're really good friends with him. So he would climb right near me, and I would always hit his foot. I would always hit his foot out so he'd catch it, and he'd go like that. And because if I got a little bit scared, I would just kick his foot out because I know he'd be way more scared than me. And then I would climb and flip him off or something and climb up. But he would never admit it. So that was just doing those little things was fun. But then once I had kids, I would climb up. I'd climb, and I'd put my positioning linear around. I'd lean back, and I'd look down, and I'm like, wow, I'm 200-300 feet up in the air. Like, if I die, my kids don't have a dad. And I'm like, this isn't fun anymore. I don't enjoy this anymore. And I literally used to be fearless, like literally not scared of anything. Right. And now all of a sudden I'm like, I don't enjoy this anymore. Like my legs start to shake a little bit, and I'm like, wow, this sucks. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this anymore. So it kind of was like a roller coaster of emotions. But so now I try to stay on the ground. No, I climb if I have to climb. But
so good choice to join the military?
Oh, absolutely. I have learned so much. I've always loved my country. I was raised patriotic, raised a flag in the front yard. Yeah. My dad was in for 24 years. Always loved my country. I was in 5th grade when 9/11 happened, and my dad got activated. I remember that to the T.
Was he in the Guard?
He was in the Guard, yeah. He was in civil engineering. And so I remember that, and I remember being like, well, I want to join. And so I genuinely joined, for the love of my country. And all the other things were just added benefits, things I didn't think of back then, but healthcare is incredible for my family. I pay a small amount for 100% of healthcare for my whole family. I pay a small amount for dental for my whole family. You get benefits for retirement. I'll have a small pension just from this part-time guard job that may pay for, a camp later on or something, or a vehicle or whatever it is. And then, the best part about it is, the camaraderie. I have made one of my best friends, I'm going to his wedding. I'm in his wedding next weekend. Never would have met the guy had I not joined the military.
Right.
And he's a family friend. My family loves him. My kids love him. My wife and I are both so excited to go spend the weekend with them. And those people we never would have met had it not been for the military. And I've got friends all over the world now. People that I communicate, through text or through email, through Facebook. Been able to see the world, some good, some bad. It's been an amazing experience, and it's already more than halfway over. I only have 9.5 years left if I want to retire. And, retire my 20 years from the Guard. Right. It's like the minimum you need to get a real retirement from there. But I would tell any kid in the state of Maine, in high school or in their younger years in college, to absolutely join, the Air Guard or the Army Guard, and then go finish your school. You get free education at any University of Maine system, and then you join the military and you're getting paid, but they're putting you through school. Right. Everything is training in the military. Every single day is some sort of training, but you're getting paid to do it. Right. There's nothing else like that in the world.
What about deployment? So you deployed?
I deployed 4 years ago, and I'm deploying again in the spring.
It's going to be a little different with kids.
This is going to be probably the toughest thing I've ever done in my life, and probably the toughest thing my wife has ever done.
Now, where'd you go the first time?
I did Qatar and Kuwait, and this time we'll be based out of Germany. We'll be there for like a week, and then we'll go somewhere in Africa for the duration, 6 or 7 months. That will be the thing that gets me through. That is knowing that my kids won't remember it.
Right.
Which is 3 and 1. Okay. 3 and 1. So it's gonna be tough. My son is in my back pocket. Right. I mean, when I'm home, he wants nothing to do with anybody but me. Right. He is my mini-me. He's my best friend. He wants to go hunting with me, four-wheeling with me. He wants to go to work with me. He wants to do everything I'm doing. He gets into bed with me and cuddles with me. He doesn't want anybody else. So that is going to be. I'm definitely afraid of like the emotional negative impact of leaving for a certain amount of time. They won't remember at that age. They don't understand time. Right. He'll have hard days where he wants his dad, and he'll cry, and he'll get over it because they get over things quick. And I pray that it doesn't have a long-term negative impact on him. But I firmly believe that certain people have to make impacts or decisions for the greater good.
Right.
And I genuinely believe that, this country needs a powerful military. One thing I always use as an example is, you've lived in Maine your whole life, and how old are you?
Not my whole life, but yeah, I'm 46.
Most of your life you're 46. You look great for 46.
Thank you.
And how many times have you seen troops from other countries walking your streets?
Right. Never.
Never. We go everywhere, and we're walking the streets everywhere, so that people aren't walking the streets over here.
Right.
And
right.
Right. That's a right that we're not used to. We have a pretty good life over here, and one of the biggest reasons we have that life is because we're so dominant throughout the entire world. Somebody has to be Big Brother.
Right.
And I'm all right with that being us.
Now, when you were deployed, was it during your fearless time?
Yep.
Was it a scary situation you're in?
No, I wasn't in combat. The only time I was scared was we were at a place called Al Jaber, and during Desert Storm, Saddam was there, and the French built these bomb-proof shelters for the jets and for personnel, and we came through and bombed the crap out of them during Desert Storm, and so that base got torn down and deactivated. We went there to reactivate that base, build it up. So we lived in tents, but everything was new construction. So they were building new buildings. We were running cable and fiber optics to it. But the problem was we would be running a trencher and an excavator and a backhoe through these fields and installing manholes and running cable. But the fields were full of artillery shells and bomb shells and stuff. So we would have to call and work with EOD. EOD would come out and we would say, hey, we have to run cable, a mile this way. Can you clear a path for us? They would get in their suits. They would go out and they would either detonate things if they had to detonate things or find shells and move them. And they would come back and they'd be like, hey, you should be good. And we're like, what do you mean? And they're like, yeah, if you stay between those two flags, you should be good.
Should be.
And we're like, those two flags, that's like a hallway. We have to run that piece of equipment. So every day we run a piece of equipment. I'm like, what are you going to do?
Right.
I got to do it. So the first couple times you're like, geez, I wonder if I'm going to hit something. And then you're like, whatever.
But if that's you now, having to do the same kind of thing.
I'd call EOD back over. I'd pull a little bit of rank and say, no, come make this wider. We're going to spend a little more time on this. We're going to do this wider. So I'm actually leading a team this time.
Right.
My first time I was a newbie. Now I have 6 or 7 people below me. So that goes into a thought process too. I've got to worry about them instead of just worrying about myself. So it'll be a whole new slew of experiences.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder what that area of the world's going to be. I mean, I assume you've never been to Africa.
I've never been to Africa. There's a lot of other countries are getting over to Africa to get the a footprint in Africa. Right. So, we're going to Djibouti, we're going to Kenya, we're going to Niger or Niger if you're French, and a lot of it's like tent city and new construction.
Right.
But that's also the fastest economy, growing wise right now. Really. But I've seen pictures and talked to other people that have deployed over there, and it's piles of garbage and piles of trash, and talk about a third world country.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah. Have you no? So the Ranger School thing you mentioned.
Yeah.
Do you actually want to go to Ranger?
Yeah,
School?
I do.
Oh,
I do really bad. If I didn't have this deployment coming up, I probably would have put my name in the pool. But the past year, just the past year and a half, they have put that open to Air Force side or Air National Guard side in the state of Maine, where as long as you get a certain score on your PT test, and then you have to do pre-Ranger school where you just have to have someone officially monitor it.
Right.
And then if they see that you pass those scores, then you have to get recommended by your first line supervisor, put you in for the nomination, and then they'll accept you or not. And that is something that is definitely on my bucket list. Obviously I have deployment next year, but there's no reason I can't, be in better physical shape, to do it. It's known as one of the hardest courses you can take in the military, and it's more of a leadership and a mental thing than anything. Right. And no one in the Air National Guard, as far as my knowledge goes, has done it. So I'd love to be, the competitive side of me wants to be the first one to do it. And then I also just want to do it. I think it would be one of the most challenging things I could ever do. And then to the things I could learn from it, you know, put it on my professional resume, and then just to have that, you know,
Right.
that feeling of like you said, you know, I'm a badass.
Right, exactly.
I did something freaking cool.
Yeah.
And then also, like, you know, to do it on the Air Guard side of things, like the Air Force side of things, and be doing it with a bunch of Army guys, I would want to be like the best one there, because they're always, branches always crap on each other.
Right,
They're going
right.
to say that we're the chair force. I'm going to tell them they don't know how to read a book.
Right.
You know, it's all in good humor, but I want to be
Right.
the 32-year-old guy that can.
So, I don't even know how, like,